Why are some engineers and producers able to rapidly go from total beginners to achieving competitive mixes, while others spend years at the top audio colleges and can't seem to get beyond a basement quality demo?
I'm now making a living doing what I love, all thanks to Hardcore Music Studio. I'm doing better work at less time, which means I'm making more money and my clients are happy.
I went from pretty much total novice to now I'm a working professional.
Why is it that some people seem to attract clients automatically and build a viable lifestyle as a producer, while most others are watching the same videos and buying the same gear, but for them, making records is still just an expensive and often frustrating hobby?
I would have been like, yeah, maybe I'll just do that on the side. And now it's like, I could really actually make this a career.
Now I am forced to go to a part-time day job instead of a full-time day job because audio work keeps coming in and it's a dream come true.
This series is going to take everything you've heard about making records and turn it completely on its head. So if you think you know everything already and you're not open to a new approach, this video series is not for you. Now, if you're the type of person who always finds a reason why it can't work for them and thinks that anyone who succeeds just got lucky, you're in the wrong place. But if you're serious about making records professionally, whether it's for clients or for your own band, you have a choice to make right now. You can either keep doing what you've been doing, jumping from one random mixing tip to the next and getting more confused, or you can watch this full training series and discover what actually goes into a pro record, one that stands up against the big label releases done by your favorite mixers. So if you want to finally uncover those missing pieces to making records at a high level, let's continue. I'm Jordan Valeriot, producer, mixer, and founder of Hardcore Music Studio. I've spent over a decade making records for some of the foremost labels in the rock and metal scene, and over the past 5 years, I've been busy turning aspiring engineers like you into real paid professionals. How? Unlike most of the online courses out there, and even the expensive colleges, I teach by taking people behind the scenes of actual, real-world, big label projects so they can finally understand what creates the clarity, punch, and size they hear on major records, and quickly start getting the same sounds themselves. So if your dream is to make records professionally, you're about to learn the recording, editing, and mixing secrets that will make that dream a reality. By the time you finish this series, you'll know exactly why your mixes are falling short and how to change that quickly to become a bona fide producer who can crank out top quality recordings no matter who you're working with or the environment and gear you have. See, even though people complain about how hard it is to succeed in music, you already know that there are people out there getting paid, turning this passion into a career. And I don't just mean the big famous producers, I'm talking about regular people, like Dave, a quadriplegic producer in Idaho who is busier than he can even handle doing singles and EPs for clients. Guys like Craig, Nick, John, Pablo, Sean, Matthias, Will, and dozens more have used the same strategies you're about to see to get so good that they quit their day jobs to go full-time in the studio. So how did they do it? Well, we all know there's no shortage of info out there. There are literally tens of thousands of videos claiming to teach you how to get better drum, bass, guitar, or vocal sounds. Yet despite the mountain of training at our fingertips, the vast majority of producers still struggle to get anything that sounds remotely pro, even when they've been trying for years. And we also know that it's not about the gear anymore. Even top mixers are ditching the fancy studios and the fancy consoles for simple in-the-box setups, even just a laptop and headphones. So if the same gear and the same content is available to everyone, then why is there such a gap between the best engineers and everyone else? Truth is, most struggling engineers are simply focusing on the wrong things. And if you haven't hit the level of quality you want, and you can't get the sound in your head to come out of the speakers, you might be making the same mistakes. I know all too well what it feels like to work hard on a mix late into the night, only to realize the next day that it sounds like trash. When I started out, I didn't even know what an EQ was for, or even what a plugin was. And like most amateurs, I believed I could teach myself. Yet after 3 years of surfing online message boards and tutorials, reading books and recording magazines, my recordings still sounded like basement demos, which meant I had to keep working jobs at gas stations and print shops with only a little bit of time left over to focus on music. But everything changed when I had the opportunity to get in the room with a real producer working on a real platinum record. I remember how he made it seem so simple. He worked fast and decisively and knew which mic to grab and where to put it to get the sound he needed. I quickly realized how I had been making things way too complex and that there was a big difference between what I was reading online and what I saw in that studio. It was like I finally broke through the mountain of misinformation and got down to the core of what makes a good recording and mix. That experience upgraded my skills so much that a few months later I was able to quit my job and go full-time in my studio. And despite working out of a tiny converted garage with no-name local bands without a college degree, I achieved my dream of being a full-time producer and eventually ended up working with bands like Silverstein, Neck Deep, Nick Johnston, Intervals, Counterparts, and many others. Over the course of this video series, I'm going to give you the same breakthroughs that took me from this to this. You're going to pick up new ways of recording and mixing that you can implement in your work and hear the difference immediately. Now look, I could just follow the crowd and try to dazzle you with a dozen cool mixing tricks, but we both know that's not going to make the difference. You want to know the difference between all the struggling audio engineers out there and the ones who are improving leaps and bounds every day? It's that they've invested the time and resources to becoming full-stack producers. A full-stack producer is a master of each discipline: recording, editing, and mixing. They have real hard skills under the hood to deliver a competitive, pro-sounding result regardless of how good or bad the client is. They work with speed and confidence. They can do more with less because the process has become simple for them. And most importantly, they know the sound they want and they know how to get it. The good news is that anyone who dedicates themselves to the craft can become a full-stack producer. It's never been easier for anyone, anywhere, to record music than it is today. But it also might be the most confusing time ever to learn. I'm sure you know what I mean. Maybe you've spent hundreds of hours watching YouTube tutorials, but you still can't get your tracks to sound like commercial releases. Your mixes either sound muddy and dull or thin and harsh. You second guess every move, starting over again and again, and being left with more questions than answers. Maybe you've even got to the point where you're considering selling everything and giving up completely. Sure, the internet's amazing for learning things, but what good is all this info if it's not creating real producers who make an impact in the industry? In the old days, you would learn by finding a real pro to mentor you, and you'd get in the room to watch them work on projects from start to finish. But these days, no one is getting the full picture. They're learning hacks and tricks, things that work here but not there, one genre but not another. It's like playing an instrument and memorizing the chords for a song, but when someone asks you to change the key or improvise, you can't do it. If you were hired to produce a country band where everything has to be recorded live and you couldn't sample, replace, or reamp it later, could you pull it off? Or if you had to do a technical metal band that needs tight, precise takes and the musicians are struggling to nail their parts, could you still deliver? What about if you had to work in a new studio without your computer or your mics or your plugins and presets? Would you still be able to make something worth listening to? Or would you be completely lost? Amateurs operate by tricks like trying to tune a bass part after it's tracked. Full-stack producers, they just get it right in the first place. Now, what if you could operate like that? Not just knowing in your minds that, yeah, you should get it right at the source, but actually being able to make that happen. And you may be thinking, well, I'm not interested in the recording side, I just love to mix. Now, I get it, mixing is fun, it's independent. Most of us would say mixing is our favorite part. But it's incredibly difficult to build a career from scratch by focusing on mixing alone. For one thing, how are you going to land mix projects where you're actually getting sent high quality, well-tracked material? And how many of your potential clients are passing you by already because the idea of hiring a separate mixer isn't even on their radar? Even worse, if all you focus on is mixing, your engineering skills are going to improve at a painfully slow rate. The reason full-stack producers improve so rapidly is because of the flywheel effect, which is when one action feeds the next and it keeps getting better and better. See, as you get better at mixing, you're training your ears for mix-ready tones, which means you'll get better at capturing those sounds during tracking. And as you edit drums and tune vocals, you're training your ear for timing and pitch, which again will help you capture better performances. And you already know that better source tones and better performances always equals a better mix.
But I don't have an actual studio to record in.
Neither did Roloff, but he decided that wasn't going to stop him from chasing his dreams. He simply made his rig mobile and travels to rehearsal spots, houses, or rents another studio to get the job done. And he's landing projects worth thousands of dollars. Maybe you're sitting there thinking,
I'm just starting out, and the idea of landing a client or competing with pro records is way out of reach.
do you think your favorite producers and mixers got to where they are with that kind of thinking? And can you actually achieve anything if you don't even believe it's possible? After completing this series, you might be amazed at how clear and simple the path towards competitive, pro-quality recordings really is, and you'll begin to see a future where you're landing your first paying clients, or your biggest clients, or finally getting your own music noticed.
My mixes just feel more alive. They have that polish that I'm looking for, and it doesn't take me as long to get there. And as a result of this, I'm releasing my own music more confidently, and I have just gained my first official paying client this year.
Having somebody willing to teach me that I literally had records they'd made sitting in my collection at home, I was like, okay, like this is the real deal. Musicians I've recorded with in the past hearing my stuff now and coming up to me and being like, wow, what is going on here? It's a good feeling.
It's not a matter of how experienced or knowledgeable you are right now. You don't need a degree, credentials, expensive gear, or a fancy room. Heck, I've done projects in $1 million studios, but I get better results mixing out of a bedroom at home. It's simply a matter of how committed you are to becoming a full-stack producer. I don't want you to spend the next 3 years isolated at your mixing desk, going through the trial and error process, frustrated, discouraged, and progressing at a snail's pace. And no matter how many free videos you've watched or courses you've already bought, all it takes is one new idea to radically change everything. This series won't be up for long, so I recommend that you binge watch the whole thing as soon as you can, and then you might want to go back and watch it again for everything you might have missed. You're going to see how that attitude of extra effort and excellence is what makes successful producers successful. It has never been easier to make commercial quality records. The playing field is level, and recorded music isn't going anywhere. You have the opportunity to sit in the producer's chair with confidence and be that connection between the artist with songs to share and the people who need to hear them. It only takes one song, one record to change everything for you, and the best time to go for it is right now. Because if not now, then when?